Hey everybody, DashCamAndy here, and I'm going to show you how to properly evaluate an item that you don't know anything about. Well, at least you don't know the history of. Last week I was given this, wow, that light's really washing it out. It is a Sanyo RD-S17 cassette deck for your home stereo. Now, I know 80s Sanyo stuff is actually pretty decent quality. So, when this was given to me about a week ago, I said, well, you know, I don't know. I mean, I have an Onkyo tape deck, and I also have a Sony tape deck, and I don't really need another tape deck, but this is a friend of mine who was cleaning out his father's estate after his father passed away from brain cancer. So he said, I'm just going to throw this out if you don't want it. So I said, well, okay, I'll take it. And so here we are. Now, most people would automatically just plug it in and see if it works, but that's not the best way to go about it, because a lot of things can happen to a unit you know nothing about. Now we can see here it is your typical 120 volt AC 60 Hertz, which means it's made for the US. It's got the US plugs on it, and it's made in Taiwan, which is that country that, or that territory of China that Trump just contacted, and everybody's freaking out about that. So anyway, it's a very basic, very basic. You have your typical RCA line out, which in this model is hardwired, and I've never seen line outs and line ins hardwired to the system. Usually they have the RCA jacks on them. This is your line input, and that's your output and your AC plug. When it comes to used electronic equipment, sometimes you can tell a book by its cover. In this case, something that's about 30 years old. It's you can tell it's been taken care of. It's not trashed. I mean, all the buttons work. Eject is a little sticky. There's a little bit of, you know, moths and dust inside, but I mean, functionally the buttons all work and everything seems nice. And usually, like I said, you can tell how good a unit's going to be judging by how well it's cared for on the outside. It's usually a good indicator. If somebody just treats it like crap, then, you know, it's probably going to be a piece of crap. Before you even dream about plugging this in, the first thing you want to do with any piece of electronics equipment is you want to check the condition of the power cord, all the way from where it enters the unit to the termination plug that you stick in the outlet. Now what you want to look for is any kind of abrasions or chewing or severe cuts to the insulation. What you see there, that's just like dirt and maybe a little bit of a paint or something. But you want to check the entire power cord from end to end and make sure that there's no abrasions or anything or exposed copper that could lead to a fire or an electrical shock. Now you want to do that before you power it on. You want to find these things out ahead of time so you can address them. Alright, so we've ascertained the plug is safe. It's a non-polarized plug, which just goes to show you how old it is. So now that we've made sure that there's no insulation and no shock risk, now we can try powering it up. Let's see, we hit the power. The VU meters have illuminated. And then you want to do a brief function test. Actually, it's probably easier if you open up the door. Now I put on fast forward and you can see that drive gear's turning. Rewind, the other one turns. That's always a good sign. And we're going to hit play, and you can see that not only is the drive wheel going, but also the capstan and pinch roller are rotating nice and smoothly. Now I can see right at the base where that capstan and the pinch roller are, where the capstan sticks through. That's that very narrow metal spindle poking through. That's got some debris on it. You're definitely going to want to clean it. The heads don't look too bad. The interior, there's some dust, but nothing bad. And then you want to just gently put your finger against that wheel to see if it's got enough drive. If you can put your finger against it and it still spins, that's a good sign that the belts are in good condition. Now, there are multiple ways for the unit to detect end of tape. One of them is by this drive sprocket stopping. Now, this is not one of those models. This is an older model. What it uses is this little tab down here. When the tape has reached the end, it becomes tight and pushes in on it. So if I simulate that by pushing down on that, the auto stop feature works. That's awesome. Also, as you can see, I started off with the tape counter at 0. The tape counter is driven by a separate belt. In fact, you can see it right here, that going right there. And that spins a gear that turns the counter. So if that weren't working, I would look at that belt. But that appears to be also very good. Let's stick in a cassette. Ozzy Osbourne, the Osman cometh. We'll hit play again, since you know the wheels spin. It is auto stopping right now. However, the tape is of unknown condition. It's been in storage for quite some time. So I'm going to diddle it around a little bit. Make sure the wheels turn at a consistent speed, and they appear to not be, which again could be the cassette. So I'm going to switch to another one. Okay, for all you youngins that forgot what life was like in the 90s, you could buy the cassette singles. This one is the album version of En Vogue's Hold On the B side. The A side is En Vogue's Don't Let Go. I picked this up at a tag sale some years back, and it got quite a bit of play. You can even see the felt pad in the tape is still intact, and that's, in and of itself, kind of rare. Make sure it's going at a steady speed. Oh yeah, that is turning nice and beautifully. Rewinds at an adequate speed. And the VU meters are working, which indicates that there is output from the playhead to the internal amplifier and VU meter. So that's a good sign. That means things are probably fully functional at this point, or at least on the playback modes.
Now here's the funniest part of it all. Caution, risk of electric shock. Do not open. Please. I laughed at that as a child.
So, let's pop the lid on this old Sanyo. Please pardon me while I put the doohickey down. Okay. Here we are inside the belly of the beast. As you can see, as solid state electronics improved, the form factor has been able to be decreased, partially to lessen the cost of manufacturing. This is obviously from front to back. If I can put my hand from here to here and not have to even put my hand flat to reach the front to the back, that means it's a half size as opposed to your standard size, which is about twice as deep front to back. Made it a little difficult to fit in a standard stereo cabinet if you had other components on top of it. Now here we have the circuit panel for our VU meters. There's some calibration potentiometers there. You got some ceramic caps, your usual electrolytics. Just, it's all very basic. I mean, all you're doing is playing back magnetic tape. So an analog signal to an analog output. There's really very little electronics. Here's your power transformer that takes AC input and drops it down to a lower voltage, which is used for the components inside. Right there's our motor. And there's our tape mechanism with all its belts, and believe it or not, those belts look really nice considering the age of the unit. I'd expect them to be, showing some cracks. Here again is the belt I showed you earlier that runs the tape counter mechanism. It is a little flimsy, so that belt's got some stretch that I'd expect for units of its age. As we look in all these little tin cans down here, these are capacitors. They have the potential for storing an electric charge. They're used in just about everything electronic. There's very microscopic ones used, well, virtually microscopic, that are used inside iPads, iPhones, your cell phone, your dash cam, and larger versions of these are used in the capacitor-based dash cams that do not have a battery in them, and the only purpose is to store an electric charge. And if you want to learn more about capacitance, I can recommend checking out EEV blog or bigclive.com. Those two gentlemen are very, very good people to watch. I am a techie. I love watching their videos. I subscribe to both of them, actually. They're really awesome. Down here we have an old chip. It's mounted upside down, but you can see right there's the Dolby symbol. So that would be for the Dolby noise reduction, which, being right on the front, Dolby NR, since it's not advertising Dolby B, Dolby C, it's probably the original Dolby A, which is fine. I mean, I'm not using this to make studio cassette recordings. If I did that, I'd pull out my Sony. You also have your metal, normal, and chrome tape selector switches. You have 1/4-inch mono plugs for left and right microphone inputs. And you have your 1/4-inch headphone jack. Does anybody use those anymore? Well, actually, yes. The professional quality and higher quality headphone sets use that jack or have an adapter to go from your standard 1/8 jack to a 1/4-inch jack. So that's not unheard of for its day and age. Those are what your headphones had. They had the big fat jack on it, and if you wanted to use a Walkman, you got an adapter to go to the smaller plug. So the technology hasn't changed much in 40 years. This little lever spring contraption, that's linkage, that basically activates a switch when you're recording that sends the signal to the record head, which is the brown head in there. That is, hold on if I can get this in there. Okay, that's your record head. That's your playback head. So what that lever does is it sends the signal to this head, so it's not always sending a signal to it. If it were, you could potentially partially erase your cassette while you're playing it, and that's probably not what you'd want. Now, newer machines use very soft touch, barely mobile, just like the buttons on your dash cam. I hate to use that as a constant comparison, but that's what everybody's familiar with. These buttons actually were a plastic cover over a linkage. We'll show the one on the right is the one I'm pushing. That lever goes all the way in and activates a latching on-off switch mounted on the circuit board. So this is all, low tech, and this was not a top of the line model by any stretch, even for its day, but this was a very good entry level machine. The kind, if you were building your stereo from the ground up, which is what people did back then, you bought individual components, and this was probably like a $200 deck for its time, as opposed to buying your $300 compact stereo that had everything built into one case. You bought each individual unit, and when your tape deck went completely kaput and you didn't want to put money into it, you bought a new tape deck, or you went without, and you could still use the radio and the CD, and everything was individual. So, let's see, there's, oh, it's nice of them to actually label stuff. Like right here, shows the recording gain. So this would be what a serviceman would adjust if your recording levels were not able to come up high enough. You know, back then, everything was labeled so you knew what circuit you were working on. Down here, it shows you like your play gain under these wires here. So this would adjust your playback volume if it wasn't up to line level. So it's quite a nice, very simple, very basic deck. And it seems to be functionally good. The only thing I need to check now is the actual audio output and input, which I'll have to figure out. Yeah, I think I can. Yeah, hold on, I'll hook it up to my TV. Okay. Playback's a little bit slow. Now, I have to be careful because it is energized. I'm going to try the Aussie tape and see maybe if that's just a bad tape, if the tape is being tight, or if it's the deck itself. Well, it sounds like I'm gonna need belts, at the very least. It's playing. I mean, there's a possibility that I two crappy tapes here, but yeah, I think this thing is just gonna need some belts. That's shot in the dark. Shot in the dark. Alright, so we've at least ascertained that it functions. It's able to play, rewind, and fast forward. The only thing is, we're probably going to need a set of belts on this. And the question is, do I want to put that kind of money into it? Or, maybe that belt is just... hold on. Alright, I need something long and metal to stick inside something electrical. Alright. Maybe that belt is just off the pulley just a hair. Let's see if I can get in here. It doesn't look like it's... gotta make sure I'm not gonna zap myself or blow anything up in the process here. Yeah, that belt is very, very loose and floppy. But, that's probably half the problem, is the belt's slipping. So the motor's spinning at the right speed. Alright, so I'm going to need to order a set of belts for this in order to do any further testing or to put it in service. However, everything else seems to be functioning, so it doesn't belong to anything. Garbage. Alright, so I'm willing to say that this thing could use a good cleanup, fresh set of belts, and it's a perfectly good usable device. I mean, that's pretty good for free. I mean, so what if I have to spend $6 on a set of belts, provided I can find a set of belts? Otherwise, I would have to just simply pull the belts out and measure them and try to find something of equivalent size. Not at all unheard of for a unit of its age. I'm really surprised that the belts aren't in worse condition. However, I'm quite pleased with it. I mean, obviously I didn't check the recording functions, but I did do Dolby and do the different tape selector switches, and they all respond appropriately. The only thing it doesn't do is, and depending on the deck, it's not expected, is when you rewind or fast forward and hit the end of the tape, it doesn't automatically stop. Considering its age, I would say it's a feature that had not been implemented either in standard decks of its age or in this particular model. Newer ones may have had that. But anyway, even the reset button, you expect those to like stick a little bit, or for the counter to not go back to 0 right away when you first push it, but that thing even works perfectly. So basically, yeah, it's a refurbishable unit if I wanted to keep it and use it, and for free, if I have to throw a couple bucks into it, that's fine. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, comment, like, subscribe, whatever. If you feel like being a troll and you want to dislike, whatever. Of course, if you want to dislike just because it played Shot in the Dark really slow and warbly, well, I guess that's, you know, it's the internet. You can do what you want. So anyway, I'm going to button it back up, put it up on the shelf, do a little research, and see if I can find belts dirt cheap for them. After all, I did find a good deal on a belt for my 1973 8-track player, and I'll be doing a video on that soon. But here it is, December 5th, and I've got about 2 more weeks of footage to go through, and then I got to start hacking together some more videos so I can get caught up. But I still wanted to crack this open and see how good it was, and you know, it's really not a bad unit. It's not top of the line, but if vintage electronics are your thing, or you just even like the old 80s look of it, then yeah, it's a good deck. I mean, you know, in the 80s, even Dolby wasn't a standard thing, and having the metal tape switches weren't necessarily a must-have item for its age. So, it's not a bad unit. I'm actually thinking I'll fix it up and keep it. Maybe I got an old unit that doesn't work that the belts would be good on, or that the belts are good in and I can swap the belts out. I don't know. I'll have to take a look. So that's a project for another time, but anyway, thanks for coming along for the ride, and I hope this helps you if you come across any fantastic finds in like your local Goodwill store, or at a tag sale, or at an estate sale, or even on Craigslist. And now you know how to take a look at it and get a very basic idea on whether or not it's safe to use. Again, like I said, make sure you check your power cord for any damage to the insulation before you even think of plugging it in and powering it on. Safety first.